Hello, my friends, and welcome to the News Pace Podcast with me, your host, Johnny Vedmore. And I'm here with someone who I feel like I need to up my game now on the podcast front, because he himself has a pretty good podcast with fantastic video and fantastic sound, which I like very much. It makes me very happy to see that he puts in the effort to get across his points, and he's an interesting fella, Dr. Ahmed Malik, and you spell that Madmalik, which is obviously a name that is of, I would assume, Pakistani descent. Is this true?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's Ahmed Malik.
Ahmed. I can't help to go every time I see a H. I do it all over the place. It's terrible. I do it in like every language. It doesn't matter. I add in a. I want it to be.
It's fine. Americans go Ahmad Malik. And it's like, no, it's not Ahmad Malik.
You must have had a lifetime of that, though.
Oh, dude, absolutely. I remember when I was like a little kid, I think I was 4 or 5, just moved from nursery to another school, and the teacher introduced me to the classes. What's your name? And I was like, Ahmed Malik. And then she went, Muhammad Ali. And I was like, what?
Oh, wow. That is such a British thing to...
She was like, she just totally forgot, and just whoever, like the first name that got in her head, she just went, and I was like, and then she pushed me forward into the class, and I was like, okay, whatever.
But yeah. you were born in Britain, so you're British as British can be by the sounds of it.
I was born in Scotland, yeah.
Yeah. Where about in Scotland were you born?
Glasgow.
Oh no! I went up there a couple of years ago to watch Burniston, one of the Burniston boys, Rob Florence, who's a Scottish comedy unit. I love Glasgow. It's a really unique place. It reminds me very much of places like Liverpool and Cardiff itself, really, at times. Old school Cardiff, not new Cardiff. It's like, really rough and ready. So you must have had quite an experience growing up if you're from Glasgow then. What was that like?
100%. It was very, very gritty. And but I think it's changed quite a bit since I left in 2001. It's all become very woke and all that kind of stuff. But thanks for your comment about the podcast. James Dalrymple said the same thing. Oh, I need to up my game now. I was like, I brought to this podcast how I've always worked in practice. So as a surgeon, even as a surgeon, I was very different to all the other surgeons. I'm a perfectionist.
Can't stop yourself. You have to. The incision has to be right.
Absolutely. Everything has to be perfect. And sometimes it can be quite disabling, because in that pursuit of perfection, you ruin something that was perfectly good, and it can make you procrastinate. It can delay you. It can make you second guess yourself.
Yeah.
But part of that is also driven by, long-standing imposter syndrome. So you just think you're not good enough. You think one day you're going to be found out. So
okay, I'm with you there. I understand that. I connect with it.
Yeah, so that's what then the imposter syndrome pushes you into the perfectionism, and then the perfectionism just makes you have a very high bar, which is good, but like I said, it's got its problems, and it's also got its problems when you're working in a team and you're the team leader, because you expect everyone else to come up to your standard too. And that isn't actually realistic. As I learned as I got older, I was like, yeah, I'm hard enough. It's tough enough on myself. It's unfair on those around me to expect them to be like me.
I understand that very much. I used to take on, to be honest, when I worked for years as a manager in a hotel, I used to just find the best way was to take on as much of the load myself and lead the way, rather than to expect other people to come up to my standards, because most of the time I would get better results from my staff if I was actually leading the way. And if we were friends, if we to have respect for other people is massively. It was your dad the same as you in that sense? Was he?
Yeah, very much so. Very hardworking, very independent, just got on with it, did everything himself. But to be honest, it's a curse, and I'll explain why. So I do everything myself. when I was a surgeon, I would be mopping the floor. I kid you not. I would be the porter. I'd go get the patient. Like, because we would be like finishing a case and I'd be like, let's send. And they'd be like, oh, the porter's on a break or we don't have any porters. And I'd be like, well, fuck it. I'll go and get the patient. And, and then in the beginning, the nurses would always get like surprised, like, why, you're the surgeon. You shouldn't be collecting the patient. I'm like, yeah, I am. What do you expect me to do? Just sit in the coffee room for 45 minutes? No. So I'd go get the patient. I'd fix the theater lights. I'd wheel in the equipment, the X-ray machines. I'd lay out the tray for the scrub nurse. The scrub nurse would be like, but that's my job. And I'd be like, yeah, but I'm the surgeon who's here every day. You come and go, because a lot of them are bank staff. I know how I want the instruments laid out. Let me just do it. So I ended up not having any breaks. I ended up taking on multiple roles, but I was a very efficient creature. So right now, for example, take this podcast, I do the scheduling, I do the booking, I do the emails and the researching, I find the guests, I produce the content, I edit it, I make the thumbnails and the artwork, I write up the post and the Substacks and everything, I publish them, and then rinse, repeat. I do everything. And I think, if I actually did delegate it out, one, it'd be very expensive. And two, it'd take fucking forever. I'd be telling, no, you did that wrong. No, that's not good enough. Yeah. So do you know what? I just get on it. But the problem is you end up being a really bad delegator and you end up doing a lot of work. And for example, I've got 3 kids and two of them I think are going to go really far because they are super intelligent and lazy as fuck. So they will get other people to do their shit for it. But one of my kids reminds me of me, very hardworking, very intelligent, very hardworking, and just does everything themselves. And I sometimes go, oh man, I wish you were lazy. Your life is going to be much easier just getting other people to work for you.
I recognize a lot of myself in you when you're talking about all of that stuff. I'm very much I when I was a musician early on, I was waiting for 3, 4 other people to get their act together to play the parts on the songs and to record, and then you'd have to find someone to mix it and master. I just ended up having to learn how to do it all myself because I was just fed up of waiting for other people. And I think that's one of the things. It's more like that impulse to want to create is something that drives you forward. And I kind of agree with you on most of it. I've not had any help until recently, where a couple of different people, and I think I had to have the people who I could properly trust to work alongside me anyway. But there's a couple of people who have held out their hand and said, okay, I'm willing to help. And I, for the first time, have been like, okay, now I'm ready to have help from people who I can trust to do that. But that's really hard to find. Is that one of the reasons why you find it so hard? Because you were talking about surgery there, and you were saying a lot of the more bank staff. That's I take it that's temporary. On you bring them in whenever you need is required of them, and they work in various places. So are you used to kind of like working with a lot of people who are just constantly mixing about, and you just end up having to do it all yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question, mate. So basically 100% about the trust issue. The thing is, I don't know who I can trust. I mean, I'm producing, important, delicate subject matter. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like me. I've been cancelled for a reason. I'm sure people want me to trip up. So I'm very careful about who I'm going to bring into my circle. I'm not part of a network or a group. I find that a lot of these groups are very cliquey. I've never been a cliquey kind of guy. I'm a Sigma male. I don't want to be part of a network. I was introduced to lots of groups, WhatsApp groups and Signal groups when I, started blowing up on Twitter. And I don't like them. And I'm not saying they're controlled opposition, but I just think like, what are they all doing? What are they? I feel like they sapped my energy and I wasn't getting anywhere with any of those things, just bombarded with messages and it was all crap. So I left all that. I like being independent that way. I don't like being part of a group. I like working collaboratively with other people, 100% for sure. Like you and me. You're gonna be in my studio in a few weeks' time. We got because there's mutual respect, but it's not like we're scheming and plotting and organizing behind the scenes. We're not those kind of people.
I,
So You know
I
what I
hear
mean?
you. I hear you, fella. I hear you. I think I was talking about this just last night with someone. There's loads of different media, independent media bubbles growing up around the place, and they all have this idea of let's make these networks that are
Yeah.
going to work. And then what happens is that they all have to defend the parts of the network. Regardless, they now give their independence away, they give their thought away, they give their morals and ethics away to trust other people who, if you've got 10 people all working together, one of two of them are going to be terrible or awful or going to do awful things or you have to then like try you have to then back them up, and then you don't speak with certain people. And that's one of the things I've seen on a lot of the independent media, is that the people will only stick within their groups, and that means their group becomes a naturally forming echo chamber to an extent.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm going to come back to the theater thing that you were talking about because actually that's quite important. That's a really good question as well. But basically, yes, networks, there's so many networks. And I think part of the problem, like Matthew Crawford talks about, it's a systems and networks issue that we're looking at, people, these interconnections with people. And you just need to look at some of the bigger podcasters who aren't really even, really out there. They're alternative, but, if you look at who they have on as their guests, there's a circuit. And, there's the same circuit of guests that keep coming round and round, and you just think, what's the agenda there? What is going on there? And I don't want to be part of a group. And I'll be honest with you, in the past, I kind of like used to be sad that I never got invited to be part of a group. I was like, oh, why am I getting left out? Oh man, I'm just so grateful I never get invited because I know people realize I'm so independent. I cannot be bought. I cannot be captured ideologically. And they don't even come to me because they're like, oh yeah, no, we can't control him, we can't tame him, and we can't shut him up. And so it's a compliment actually when I don't get. And then recently there was a big group formed on the alternative scene, podcasters and whatnot. I wasn't invited, and great. I'd be really upset if I'd been invited. Like, oh shit, am I giving off that vibe? So I don't want to be part of any group. But anyway, going back to what you said about theaters. So at 20, 30 years ago, you would have a dedicated team that you worked with. Your scrub nurse, your assistant, your runner, your ODP, your anesthetist. It was a well-oiled machine. Now, if you imagine like when you're a Formula One race car driver and, the biggest part of your race is when you come in for the pit stop, right? Your wheel change, your fuel change. Like you need everyone in that team to fucking know what they're doing. Because like one guy off, the bolt comes off, the wheel spins off, and that's happened. You can see videos of that, and it's a disaster. Or a fuel problem where someone just doesn't put the fuel in properly, and the car races off, and there's fuel everywhere. I mean, that pit stop team, everyone knows their role, everyone knows everyone else's role, everyone's working on the clock, split second. It's beautiful when you see it. Now, what you don't see in that Formula One team is, hey, Mr. Johnny Walker's sick today. I'm Billy Baggins. I'm going to take his place. What do I do? Can you tell me what I do? I mean, it just fucks everything up, right?
Mhm.
So safety comes from consistency, and risk assessment is about reducing variation and having everything in a very controlled, consistent manner. Now, 20, 30 years ago, you had those kind of Formula One theater teams. And but over the years, that's gone out the window. Now, you've got people off sick, people stressed, bank staff coming in left, right, and center that can't find staff anymore. So literally, whether it's NHS or private sector, you go in and you go, oh, yeah, Maggie, you're with me. That's great. I know you. Oh, who's the ODP? I don't know. Abdul, right. So where do you work? What do you normally do? Who's my assistant today? Oh, Mary from what? Ireland? Sorry, I don't know. But have you worked here before? Like, oh, and it's like they don't fucking know anything. They never worked with you. They maybe not even worked in the same specialty. Like they might have done obs and gynae and you're fucking orthopedics. Or they might say, oh yeah, I do hip and knees. And you're like, well, I'm a foot and ankle surgeon. And oftentimes I'd be sitting there operating and, the scrub nurse would be like, oh, I've never seen this operation before. Oh, this is very interesting, and you're just like, how can you be efficient? How can you be safe when everyone around you is not your regular team? So you're constantly keeping an eye on everyone. Your eyes are in the back of your head. You're listening. You're being vigilant. You're going slow because you can't go fast. Can't go fast like this. And it's inherently not really safe. It's very stressful as a surgeon. So, I would hear lots of times, cases where patients would be operated on on a case, and halfway through the operation, they realize that actually it's a wrong kit that's been ordered, and so they have to then close up the patient, tell the patient, wake them up, tell them sorry, we don't have the kit, and then keep them in hospital for 2 days. And when the new kit arrives, then take them back again to hospital. That that happens, mate, and more often than you think. So I would be there early in the morning, checking all the equipment. Is this labeled correctly? Is this what I ordered? Are these the right screws? Are these the right drills? And it would not be unusual if I walk in and scrub nurse would come up to me and go, "Hi, Mr. Malik." I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm your scrub nurse today." I'd be like, "Bank," and they'd be like, "Yes." And Mr. Malik, I've not done this operation, but can you just show me like where is the equipment? So I would have to go in the back and pull out and check and say, "Yep, this is what we've got," and explain fucking everything to them.
Yeah.
Right. And oftentimes it would also be like, "I don't know what that is. That might not be the kit. Open it up and check that we've got the right. Don't send for the patient." And they'd be like, "Oh, it's the wrong one. No, you have to cancel the operation." Then I would go, right? Then I would go to the patient and go, "I'm really sorry. Wrong kit's been ordered or it's not been delivered. I'm sorry, we're going to have to cancel your operation." And this is even in the private sector.
Yeah.
So it's just a complete fucking shit show.
Yeah, it sounds like, but I mean, there's a couple of things that I'd say is that, first of all, like the destabilization, that sort of destabilization of bringing in constant temporary staff or having temporary methods to do things, like is also in wider society as well. So I think that like things like 0 hour contracts, etc., are
Yeah.
kind of like an example of that, and the fact that people don't have work, so they're always stressed. So they're going into any situation that's temporary, stressed, nervous, not knowing what they're doing, and those people. Then there's a secondary factor to that, which is it allows for people to be controlled easier. The people at the top normally are the ones who will have to take control. Just like you're saying, you'd have to start doing things yourself. But it also allows in other areas, it allows a layer of control. Do you think that's being something that's we're seeing all over society, much more than it was before? Because you're explaining, it was different back in the day in the surgery. Isn't that the same for politics and everything?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the thing. Like we're advancing in time. It's now going to be 2025, but I feel like in every respect we're just going backwards, backwards culturally, society wise, spirituality wise. I mean, even just for example, I was at the school gates the other day, and I was speaking to one of the dads of my daughter's friend, and he's a tree surgeon. And I was like, "How's it going?" He was like, "Oh man, it's really busy, but really stressful." I went, "What's stressful?" He went, "Just getting staff." I went, "What do you mean?" He goes, I've got young lads who come on and go, 'We want to be tree surgeons,' and they're just standing around on their phones."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Guys, come on. I'm up a tree. You should be watching me. You should be learning from me. I want you to pass my stuff. What the fuck are you doing on your phones?"
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Not only just that, they drag their feet. They barely do any work. They pitch up late. They set your whole day off wrong. But they want to be paid the same amount as you get paid." And he goes, "It's just fucking backwards." It's like, when I was an apprentice, I was keen. I was like, I got paid fucking peanuts. But if I was caught just having a fag, because they didn't have mobile phones, I get crucified. Because it's just crazy what's going on. And it's not just that, it's the same with the surgical trainees. So I'll give an example. So I'm 49, right? I'm not that old, but when I was a trainee surgeon, right? A junior doctor, I would go to theater, but to go to theater, I had to do the ward round, I had to do all the blood tests, write up all the scripts, get everything fucking done so that I could all the jobs, all the ward jobs, so I could get into theatre. And to get into theatre, I'd also go and see the patients who are being operated on, take a history, examine them, read up about the operation and the anatomy, and then go to theatre. And then I'd be like, "Prof, can I please scrub up?" And they'd be like, "Have you done your jobs?" I'd be like, "Yeah." "Have you done your ward round?" I'd be like, "Yeah." Right, okay. Have you read about this operation? "Yeah." "Have you spoken to the patient?" "Yeah." "Okay, scrub up." Scrub up then. And then you watch this two-hour operation, and at the end you go, can I close the wound, sir? Just close the wound, right?" And they'd look at you, right? All the big guys would look at you and go, "Well, do you know your anatomy? What's that? What artery is that? What supplies this? What supplies that? What muscles innervation?" And you'd give them all the answers and be like, "All right, okay." And what suture are you going to use, for the wound? Non-absorbable, absorbable, synthetic, or natural? And then you give them the answer, and then they'd be like, "What size?" And you give them the answer, 2O or whatever, 3O. And then they'd be like, "What kind of needle do you want? Diamond point, J needle, reverse cutting, round body?" And at that point, you'd be like, "Oh, don't know, sir." And you've gone through like 50 fucking hurdles by now, right? And at the last hurdle, they go, "Oh, well, when you know the answer to that next week, then maybe you can close a wound." That was what it was like. You need to earn that right to hold a scalpel or the needle on the forceps. It took, discipline and hard work. I kid you not, man. In the last few years as a surgeon, I would have literally this junior doctor I've never met before, literally just parachuted into the hospital, 2-3 week rotations, and come up to me in theatre and go, "Mr. Malik, can I do this operation?" I'd be like, "Sorry, who are you?" But I'm your junior for this rotation for 2 weeks or one day or whatever. I'd be like, "Oh, okay, okay. Have you done this operation before?" "No." Have you spoken to the patient?" "No." Uh, you don't take a history and you don't know what's no. Have you read up the anatomy and how to do this operation?" "No, I was hoping you would do that for me. Can I operate?" And you're just like, how did we get here? How did we get here from this person thinking that they're so entitled that they can come in and not having ever seen this operation, ever operated on it, never read up on it, that they can just come in now, ask me, the boss, for them to do the surgery and me to supervise them? I mean, it's just fucking mental.
It
And
makes
when you
me, yeah.
and when you say, "I don't think that's a great idea," these snowflakes would literally just cry or complain or go up and tell their super educational supervisor, "He's a mean boss. He didn't let me operate." I mean, do you see how far we've gone from one
Mhm.
extreme to another? It's just
It,
mental,
it
mate.
it feels like a lot of this probably stems from the birth of like information theory and other things, where you've got then people who understand the amount of information that these people need at the lowest level is little, and then you've still got risk, but it's mitigated risk in other areas. And so we want people to be at the lowest level rather than the highest level. And our systems are created to be the smallest amount of information necessary put in to
Mm.
get the desired result. And the desired result then ends up being really disappointing if you're from the old world, because you see how that progression has gone over time. Um, when did you? I wanted to talk about this a little bit later, really, but you're in there now. You left being a surgeon. Was that during COVID?
No, yes, no, no. So basically, I got kicked out of two of my three private hospitals in late last year, September and December. Um, September one was permanent. December one was pending an investigation, which took 5 months to basically conclude. But by that point, December, I was only working at one hospital. It was financially not viable. I was hemorrhaging cash because there's significant overheads in your private sector, because you're paying for secretary, you're paying for indemnity, you're paying for room rental, you're paying for your equipment, ultrasound machine, gate scan. These they're overheads, and you're just paying it out without any revenue coming in,
Mhm.
and it's very expensive. Like, I don't think people understand how crippling it is. And surgeons, modern surgeons, young surgeons like myself, were really strangled after 2010 when we all came in because insurance companies said, if you want our patients, you need to accept a contract where we will dictate the fees to you.
Mm.
So prior to 2010, they didn't do that. A consultant could charge whatever they wanted, and the insurance company's job was to pay. And if the insurance company had a limit, then the patient would pay the difference. After 2010, the insurance company said to all the new consultants coming in, they made them sign a contract. You cannot do that. You can't charge the patient extra. You have to accept our fees. And if you don't, you're not going to get any patients. And when you think about it, two of the big companies take up 70% of all the patients. If you are denied 70% of private patients, I mean, you're just not viable. You can't do a private practice. You can't do it. It's not. So everybody, including myself, were like, okay, because we're all coming out of training significantly in debt. NHS doesn't pay as much as you might think. And, it's expensive. You've got your debts to pay off. You've got the standard of living people expect of you as a surgeon. And you also want to do private practice because you're more autonomous. You can do things the way you want rather than some stupid manager telling you. So there are attractions to do private practice for that reason. But the costs are massive.
Was that
And
was it an insurance company coup then?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Was it the insurance companies that benefited from that system
Absolutely.
change?
Well, I mean, think
Right.
about the premiums are gone up. The surgeons are getting less. Well, where's the money going? So, it's like just do the math. Pay the customers, patients are paying more for their premiums. Surgeons and everybody are getting paid way less, including physios and whatnot. And so who's pocketing the money?
And you get a much lesser standard of care for, of
Oh,
course.
absolutely. So what that does is, take for example, physiotherapists. They'll say, right, I used to get paid £100, and I spent 45 minutes to an hour treating my patient. Now the insurance company is paying me £30 an hour. Fuck it, I'm gonna have to see 4 patients in an hour.
Hmm.
So now you're getting 15 minutes in and out, and it's just here's a piece of paper with some exercises. Good luck, bye bye. Or a surgeon who might have spent 45 minutes in a consultation getting £250, is now getting £100. So it's like, great, 15-20 minute consultation. And so do you see what I mean? So they're gonna try and recoup those costs, and the first thing that goes is time.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the most important things is time, because it takes time to listen to a patient's story. It takes time to build a rapport. It takes time to figure out what's wrong. It takes time to explain to the patient what the treatment options are. That takes time. And 15-20 minutes? Are you fucking kidding? It's not happening. So what you do is, what the insurance companies have done a great job at is a zero-sum game. Everything's being driven down. It's just a race to the bottom, a race to the bottom. And the surgeons have taken part in this race and like, great, fine, whatever. And instead of saying, no, this is fucking wrong. No, no, no. So anyway, going back to my hospitals, what happened was I couldn't afford. I just couldn't afford it. And not just that, I was looking around at the landscape. I've been doing podcasts since June. It's now December. I've spoken to a lot of people. I know Sam White, David Cartland, Anne McCloskey, Jared White, Jane Donahan, Dr. Sarah Myhill. These are British, Irish doctors who've been punished for being dissidents. I've now become aware of doctors in Australia and America, and I've realized there's something going on here. Like, the regulatory bodies are not there really to protect the patients. They're there to protect big pharma and the government narrative. And if you are a dissident doctor and you go against the grain, they will find any fucking reason to drag you over the coals and make your life miserable. And you just need to Google Daily Mail, Dr. Sarah Myhill, Daily Mail, Dr. Muhammad Adil, Daily Mail, Dr. Sam White, GP anti-vaxxer, Daily Mail, Dr. Jane Donahan, and just look at their faces being plastered, look at the headlines, derogatory. It's basically discrediting you. It's basically dragging you through the mud and destroying your reputation. And I was like, so I can't practice anymore. I can't make a living anymore. So I'm going to hold on to my license and registration. For what reason? Just so that they can come at me and launch an investigation, because they already did, by the way, in last year. which they never found me guilty of anything. But
Is
Sarah
is, is
Myhill's been through this GMC thing 40 times, and
wow.
39 times she's been cleared. But the thing is, every single time you get dragged through the process, you need a lawyer, you need solicitors, you need to take, it's stressful, the time. I mean, it's awful. It's a really grueling, punishing process. And, it's not surprising a lot of doctors who get referred to the GMC take their lives. It's horrible, mate. So I
Is
was
this
just like,
systemic? When you're talking about this, is this something where they are trying to persecute the staff below to get rid of more people for the coming NHSX, or is this like
no,
is this simply just there's the system has been built to look for people to punish?
no, it's not none of those, I don't think. I mean, just anyway, very, very quickly, I gave back my license in January of this year. So that's what happened. That's when I gave up. I hung up my boots and went, you know what? I've had enough. I can see where this is going to go. And goodbye. So maybe I jumped before they pushed me, right? Or I ran away before they hanged me. So
Mhm.
basically, no, I think the system is designed to basically make sure doctors conform, that
Mhm.
doctors stick within a certain very narrow lane, never look and question, and never call out the system. Because if they do, they get their livelihood taken away from them, they get their careers trashed, their reputation trashed, and doctors are pretty much one-trick ponies. They're not really multi-talented. They can't really just go and do some other job because they've spent and dedicated their whole life training towards being a doctor, and and that's it. And then if that gets taken away from them, what are they going to do?
Mhm.
Like, seriously, what are they going to do? They don't know anything else. So, and it's also, the system is designed to almost like a show trial. So basically, in the Soviet Union, they would have show trials. I mean, and it was a farce because the verdict had already been done. Right? You're guilty, right? They'd already decided that behind closed doors. But then what they would do would have this shock pantomime trial, and the purpose of it wasn't anything to do with, punishing the dissident, because that's already been done. It was to say to the wider society, if you dare to emulate or copy what this guy or girl has done, and if you want to be a dissident, this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to be humiliated. You're going to be punished. So let this serve you as a warning. Stick to the program. Don't question. Don't question. And I think the system is designed to punish the doctors and actually warn other doctors, you don't want to be a troublemaker. Like Andrew Wakefield, I
Mhm.
mean, every doctor knows about Andrew Wakefield, the boogeyman.
He
So
stopped
all,
me having the MMR when I was young. My mum listened to him, and I'm glad
right?
she did.
Yeah. So, that's what I think the regulatory bodies are now. I'm not saying they're all completely bad every case. I mean, there are some really bad doctors out there, and in which case, they do some good. But I mean, I've heard stories, you can Google it, people can look it up, where doctors have had sexual affairs with patients, or taken advantage of patients, and yet they just had a slap on the wrist,
Mm.
temporary suspension for 3 months or whatever, and they're back working again. You're just like, what? And if you question the COVID vaccine, you get struck off forever. You're like, what? Like, sorry, excuse me. Did you see that? You sexually taken advantage of a patient, you get slapped in the wrist and a temporary suspension, and you get back to work. But simply saying, I'm not sure about these experimental jabs, you get struck off forever.
Mm.
How does that work? How
Yeah.
does that work? So, it's just messed up, mate. It's messed up.
Indeed, and there's a lot of directions in questions really that I have for you. One of them is obviously something you will have experienced a lot over the past year, being asked about what your experience in that sort of setting during COVID would have been like. So if you could give like a brief rundown of what your experience was like during COVID, because I can imagine it's it was wild for us to look from the outside, but inside it must have been a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah, no. So I was not working in the NHS at this point. I'd resigned back in 2017, right? So I'm
Okay.
working out of a private hospital, but I know a lot of doctors are working in the NHS.
And there was a difference, though. There was a difference between the NHS and private hospital and how they reacted to it.
Yes and no. So basically, this hospital's got shut down. I got told you can't see any more patients and operate. So finished. So I was, stuck at home, couldn't practice. And a lot of my colleagues who were still in the NHS were told the same. Go home. Go home. Your operating list, your hip replacements and your knee replacements, everything stopped. And they were loving it. They were loving it because they were getting paid full pay salary. The weather was great and they're having barbecues. And they're like, oh, this is fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Full salary, at home, chilling. And it wasn't great for me because I'm in the private sector. I'm self-employed. If I don't see people, I don't make any money. And I also wasn't able to access furlough pay, the government scheme. So, I'm hemorrhaging cash. And then basically when they did open up, it was to open up to the NHS contracts. So now the private hospital said, now we've opened up, but because the NHS was shut down and wasn't operating, we're going to take some of their waiting lists and we're going to offer it to our NHS consultants to come to the private hospitals and make extra money operating on their NHS patients. So the same NHS consultants who were having barbecues and not doing any work and saying how great it was, were now not able to do that much operating in the NHS because the system never got back running again. And I had a conversation with one of the surgeons 2 weeks ago. He went, it's a fucking joke, Ahmad. Remember the days, Ahmad, when the managers would be like, oh, come on, get on with the waiting list, increase capacity. He goes, mate, I just operate once a week. They've taken away one of my operating lists and I never got it back. All the surgeons are the same because you normally have 2 days or 1.5 days of operating a week. Most of them are down to half or 1 day operating. He goes, the managers don't care. Nothing has got back to what it was before the pandemic. Everything is still on the slow mode. So the waiting lists are massive. The surgeons are delighted. They don't work anywhere near as hard as they used to. And then they get told, oh, take some of the NHS work to the private hospitals and we'll pay you. So they get guaranteed income, which is almost as the same as a private insured patient. But it's also covered by indemnity. So the government is paying. And so if anything goes wrong, the surgeon doesn't need to worry. The NHS will foot the bill. And there's all these other little things as well. So and it's a guaranteed stream of patients. Like, it doesn't matter what they do. They don't need to be nice to the patient. They go, right, you want a hip replacement? Okay, right, sign there, goodbye. That's it. So for a lot of these surgeons, they tell me, they go, oh, it's a fucking great thing, Ahmed. Don't have to talk to the patient. A lot of the surgeons don't want to talk to the patients. I mean, this might be a surprise to some people. They don't want to fucking talk to people. They just want the money. They just want to do their operation, collect the paycheck, and goodbye. So, this system where the NHS farms work to the private sector is actually really quite attractive to some of the surgeons. Some of the surgeons don't do any insured work. They don't do any self-pay work. They just take NHS contract work because it's guaranteed work. And it's really easy. It's indemnified and no risk for them. Whereas if you have a self-paying patient, for example, they're not going to put up. I mean, if you've got someone paying £250 to see you and you spend 5 minutes with them, I mean, they're going to be an angry patient. They want their money's worth. So you need to give them proper time and due care and attention. And a lot of these doctors who've been trained in the NHS and have been now habitualized to just treat a patient like a number, in, out, they don't even have the skills to properly deal with a patient who's self-paying. Their natural default is, right, what you want? Okay, right, your hip, right, okay, fine, great, bye-bye. And a self-pay patient will be like, what? Is that? No, I want to tell you, like, and the surgeon will be like, oh, fuck, they're talking to me now. Fuck, okay, I have to pay attention. Right? So there's a cultural problem people don't realize. Anyway, so the private hospital was taking all this NHS contract work, and I was told, you're not an NHS consultant. You just have to stay at home. So even when the private hospital opened up, I wasn't allowed in. I wasn't making any money. No. And then, months later, then they say, okay, now you can come back. But we gave away your operating slot. So, I had a timetable. There was days when I had clinics, days when I had operating lists. And now I'm like being told, yeah, you don't have that operating list anymore. 6 months have gone by or whatever, 8 months have gone by. We gave it away. I'm like,
Wow.
so when can I operate? Oh, good question. Yeah, we've got so much work. Oh, evenings, weekends, and I don't like operating on evenings because most of my patients are day case surgery. So what if I do operate in the evening? That means they have to stay overnight, which is pointless because they're day case. I also don't want to do evenings because actually physiologically, from a patient point of view, it's not good for them to be operated on at night. It's a stressor. The best time is in the morning and afternoon.
Mhm.
In the evening, they should be relaxing, winding down, going to sleep. They shouldn't be like going into surgery and then pain and then staying up all night. That's bullshit. And then for me, it was pointless because, I'm tired in the evening. You just saw I just did a cold bath. I get up at 6:30, 7 every morning, sometimes earlier. I get on with my day. And, by 9 o'clock, 8, 9 o'clock, I'm really tired. And 10 o'clock, I'm getting into bed. You know,
Mhm.
but, evening surgery is stressful. But, most of my colleagues are doing evening slots because they're working in the NHS during the day. And the private hospital wants to maximize, work. So, people are doing hip replacements at 10 o'clock at night,
Mhm.
and with bank staff. And what
That's
happens when something
crazy.
goes wrong? Who's around at 10 o'clock in the night to say, oh shit, we need to get another piece of equipment or run to another hospital and get that drill or blah, blah, blah.
That's crazy. It's
It's just
crazy.
so yeah. Are you getting a little window into?
Yeah, most definitely.
Oh,
Oh,
by the way, can I quickly just say something? I like your little neon sign, news paste.
yeah, it's good.
Why
I
is,
like. Go
yeah, why
on.
is it called news paste?
Um, I thought about it for a long time. I thought about, it's really hard to build your sort of brand and build your idea. And what I wanted to do and what I still want to do is I found that, and what I try and do is I found that I wanted to imprint other people's sort of ideas and link other people's work up on the platform. So the idea at the start was to have like you take something from the news, and in amongst all my own work, I would be able to just have links to other people's stuff, so that I can, people can go and find much more independent media people, more people who I think are interested, etc. And so it was kind of like the idea of taking news and pasting it. And so it's something that I want to get to eventually, but unfortunately at the start you've got to start off on your own. So I don't want to be necessarily beholden to anyone, but I want to encourage other people to look outside just me, outside this world. I want people to look at everybody and take in all of the views and not be not be stuck in echo chambers. So I wanted to create something which allowed me to help people get out of those sort of
Well,
systems.
so I actually got a real neon pink sign and it was beautiful. It lasted a week and then it broke for some reason. I didn't do anything. So I was a bit upset. But the neon sign company is sending me a new one now.
Oh,
So
nice. Oh, that's
it's really
good.
nice, the nice pink DocMalik sign.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like pink. I have to say, I do like pink. I
And
was
what about, sorry, very quickly, what about the dog? What's that all about?
Because I'm the news hound. I go through when I go. Most of my work is researching, deep research, and I am hounding through the news, paper arts, archives, looking for sniffing for something. I'm trying to track down some information, and then when I started, I started a program called News Hound, which allows me to then say, "This is the article, and this is all the source material." And we'll go through the source material, and I'll show you how I actually create the article from scratch and all of the information where it comes from, and how I make up my mind. And then exploring that is kind of like, see a dog with a bone. I'm a dog with a bone. That's it. I'm
Mm.
just like most humans. I just love to have I love to explore things, and so
So
yeah.
you've got more than one hat then, because basically I am definitely not a journalist or an investigative, journalist or anything like that. I'm literally just a podcast host. So what that means for me is I give a platform to people who bring their wares to display to the wider audience in the world. My job is to find interesting people who might not necessarily be heard, and interesting viewpoints. And I'll research what they're talking about, and I'll talk about it, but I'm not the one doing the nitty gritty fact finding. So, for example, there's this guy that was trolling me on X, and he's like, "Oh, you never talk about the Scottish COVID inquiry," and I'm like, "Yeah, please come and speak about it. I'd love you to come and speak about it." "Oh, I don't do podcasts," and I was like, "Well, you're on Twitter banging on about it and lambasting that no one wants to talk about it, and here I am saying come and talk about it on my show, and you say no, I don't want to." And I said, "Why don't you want to?" "Oh, I just don't do it." I was like, "This is ridiculous." And he just goes around like trolling me and telling other people, "Oh, Doc Malik never talks about it." And I'm like, what the hell? I cannot be researching every topic. I just don't.
I understand. I
I'm
mean,
an orthopedic surgeon, for God's sake. I can't know the ins and outs of geoengineering, the political problems, the fake assassinations, the latest current affairs, the latest war, the latest, scam, medical scam, hoax, all of these things. I cannot be an expert in all that. My job is to host my expert guests, real experts. But you seem to be doing a bit of both.
well, I go through like my articles are really long form, really super sourced. It takes sometimes a year and a half of research before I actually put pen to paper. And I have multiple articles going at the same time. And one of the things I'd say to what you just said there is that I will spend, say, a year and a half researching and writing a piece. It's really in depth, and I'll put it out there, and it explains something about something specific. And the first thing that will always happen will someone come along and say, "Have you heard of this topic that's related to this?" And will instantly want the next thing. They just want to be fed the next thing. They want the next thing. But I don't do next things that other people want. I don't do the next thing other people want. I'm hounding. I really am a news hound. I go from, like, every single one of my articles has kind of a connection to a previous piece of work because I'm still following a trail. I'm still trying to build up the understanding of what's actually going on.
Can
And
you give an example? Can you give an example of a recent thing that you've uncovered?
Okay, well, I mean, the most recent article, of course, is Third Culture and Musk's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein through a Jeffrey Epstein funded course. That it has loads of different working parts. I did a Newshound episode about a year and a half ago on Richard Thaler, who's part of the Behavioral Insights team, Nudge Units. He's a grandfather of behavioral economics. So that sort of elements in there. I've done loads of research and written multiple articles and helped research books on Jeffrey Epstein, so I know that inside and out. I've been doing news hounds on Elon Musk's past in all of the history.
Okay. Can you just pause there for a second? Can I ask you something?
Mhm.
So I'm coming to the idea that a lot of these people that we see are like Tony Stark. Do you know who Tony Stark is?
Yeah. Of course, I know who Tony Stark is.
Iron Man, right? So the Iron Man guy, this big, rich, flashy, playboy,
Arsehole.
billionaire.
He's an
He's, a,
arsehole. His
he's not.
character is an arsehole all the
He's a
time.
dick. He's an absolute wanker. But he's rich. He's a playboy. He's smart. He's funny. He's witty. Look at me. I'm so fucking cool, right? I can do whatever I like. And I think a lot of these people that we see and we are told that they are geniuses and look how fucking smart they are and look how they brought this to the world. And whether it's Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, not so much, he's a bit of a nerd, but in that category, these individuals, Peter Thiel, these individuals, even Google, the Google people, these individuals who are basically tech geniuses, these fucking Tony Starks, and look how smart they are, and they've built these massive, big empires. And I've come to the idea these are all manufactured people. These are all people who have been selected. They've been told by the security apparatus, we want to form a company, and the company is going to be doing this, this, and this. You're going to be the front man. You're going to have plenty of money to play with. You're going to be a billionaire. It's going to be a fucking great ride for you. But, you're working for us, bitch. I'm coming to the idea that this is what's happening. Is this the case with Elon, or
The-
is he really the mastermind of 6 companies? He's able to tweet on one hand all day long, fucking play table tennis, launch rockets into the sky, and design the next Tesla car. I mean, is that Elon Musk,
no,
or
but
what's the reality?
what you're talking about is what I trace. So with we when it comes down to Elon Musk, what I was saying earlier, I did all of these different bits of research, and one of the bits of research that I did that led towards this one article was writing for UK column with D.E. Shaw and the rise of Jeff Bezos. So going back, looking back in time and saying, how did Jeff Bezos has created this image? He's had loads of books written that he pushed out on Amazon that said, oh, he put these secondhand books in the back of his station wagon that his family helped purchase, and he built this narrative that him and his new missus went off to sell these books, and he created Amazon, when in actual fact he was the vice president and acting president of a D.E. Shaw, which owned 5 to 10% of the New York Stock Exchange, and was so powerful that they were creating the world of tomorrow. All of the big people they were putting in
So,
charge.
go back. What was the reality?
The reality, the D. Shaw, David Shaw, is
Yeah.
one of the biggest hedge funds in New York. It was created with the idea of computer algorithm modeling, game theory, really, to work out what the next biggest markets would be in the coming internet revolution. They predicted everything beforehand, secretly in rooms, of course. Everybody kind of knew what was going to look like a bit of a government program, and he was training up people like Hales Miner, and who ends up going on to create download.com. So you'll need a place where everybody downloads everything. We'll create download.com. So one of the people they put through, who was working with Jeff Bezos in the training for D.E. Shaw. D.E. Shaw would get people in, and they would say, we're looking for the people who are the best, and then we will give them the role that they're best for. So they
Okay,
would
so how's Jeff Bezos related to David Shaw? He
they recruited him out of about 2 years after he left university. They recruited him. He rose to the ranks of vice president. In D.E. Shaw, they would go into rooms and they would do projects to game out what they would do to create massive media and online empires to an extent. And that's what they did with what he did with Amazon. He left D.E. Shaw, went to D.E. Shaw and said, okay, now I'm going to go set up Amazon. And then they set up Amazon. He directly came from the biggest hedge fund in the world, where he at one point was acting president and had been vice president. This hedge fund, like I say, owned at one point 5 to 10% of the New York Stock Exchange. That's how wealthy they were. At the same time, D.E. Shaw, when Bezos is going off to do Amazon, D.E. Shaw is working for Clinton as he becomes president, while, of course, during the period when Jeffrey Epstein's going there 17 times as well. So they're all kind of mixing in the same circles anyway. And he's...
Okay, so can I just say something?
Yeah.
Just the fact that he worked with D.E. Shaw, he says he took a job at the then 2-year-old hedge fund D.E. Shaw and became one of the company's vice president in just 4 years. Wow. As a VP, Bezos was tasked with researching new business opportunities on the rapidly growing internet, which was held tremendously potential. So do you think he was backed financially? Do you think they said,
Yeah.
here's some money and go away and set this thing up?
I think they were backed through Department of Defense projects. I think D.E. Shaw was recruited to set up his hedge fund, I think, at the start for that reason. What you find really interesting about D.E. Shaw, you personally, would be that in 2001, 2002, he left the hedge fund behind and he went into biopharmaceuticals. Said that was the future, and is behind various new model type pharmaceutical solutions that aren't of the old world, the mRNA style sort of futuristic medicines is what he was concentrating on. So David Shaw is someone who recognized trends really early on, co-ops them, gets on top of them, and makes a hell of a lot of money out of it, and then leaves again. And so he was writing policy papers up until the end of Clinton's reign as president. So these guys are all manufactured, they're placed in position. And if you go back, that's what my job is. That's what I do. That's why I see a lot of what I do goes back to looking at leadership programs, how leadership programs for the elites were created, and then who was creating them, and how all these people were installed into position. I did the same with Klaus Schwab as well. And so all of these guys, again, Musk, going back through Musk's history, all of these different things that I've investigated led to the most recent article. And those things that I was investigating, I put out in different formats. So I've done like 2 episodes of New Sound on Musk, an episode on Richard Thaler, and I put them out beforehand, like bits of the research, but it leads to a discovery. All of these bits of research always lead to a bigger, grander discovery, which was that Elon Musk was trained in behavioral economics by the father of the nudge units, creator of the nudge units, to manipulate people's behavior without them realizing it, by using different methods that people wouldn't see it happening, so surreptitious methods. And that is like the major story. That's a major, people should have found that already. But
so who was the father of that nudge unit again?
Richard Thaler, Thaler, and Richard Thaler is one of the most. He wrote Nudge in 2008. Soon afterwards, he was advising Obama and Cameron. Cameron set up the Nudge units and behavioral insight teams. Behavioral insight teams went global in about 2013. It was the first company that was like registered as a government company and private entity. That normally isn't allowed. And the whole story is fantastic, but I wouldn't understand what I was looking at if I didn't know all of the working parts. So if I didn't understand what Jeffrey Epstein's edge was, if I didn't understand what Richard Thaler was, what nudge units were, then I wouldn't have been able to understand what Musk was actually being trained and who he was being trained by. So it's a case of you have to like research all the different parts, and then the story comes together at the end, whether you like it or not. If you're looking for the answers in the past, you end up with this situation where you have to put all of the building blocks together, and then suddenly you got the building, and the building looks a certain way and has a certain design, and you go in there and you're able to find more information really easier because you've built the view, an accurate view of the paradigm, the facts. You've put the facts together in chronological order, and the story then, when you read a story, when you put all information in chronological order and you read a story, you see which parts are missing. You suddenly realize, oh, there's a couple of years here, there's a year here, there's a time here, there's this, they create friendships here or there, which obviously then have a massive effect. And then you see things that get hidden from the record. Like, for instance, Musk was originally, before he was any of his businesses, he was working for Microsoft, and he was working for Microsoft when Bill Gates was forming all of the Microsoft Young Leader programs after being part of the Global Leaders for Tomorrow out of the World Economic Forum. So there's this whole dynamic that you see like unfold. And that's why I love talking with people. When I'm listening to you, I was going to say this earlier, when I was listening to you speaking about your experiences, I'm thinking of other things as well. It makes me say, I should be looking at this, I should be looking at that, I should be having a quick check into something about the system and how it's made up, and understand the root and how it goes. So, yeah.
Wow. Fascinating, man. Fascinating. I mean, yeah, I'm just looking at all these things and that. I didn't. So this is what I mean. I'm so normie. Honestly, I really am. Like, I didn't know about this guy, Richard Thaler.
It's why I say as soon as you let people know about all of this stuff and they see it and they realize, oh, this is just all fact, it's all written down. What they do is then ask another question. And what happens a lot with my articles is loads of people will ask a load of extra questions as soon as I bring it out. And one or two of those will make me go, That's a very good question. I'm going to go down that route and see what I find. So in a sense, my journalism is symbiotic with the audience, because the audience will project out to questions that I need to ask myself. But even though they do that, I used to think that people would, be able to steal the stories first and stuff. But it's not the way it is nowadays. Everything's constructed in a way that people aren't really looking at the facts. They're just looking at what's trending at the time, and that's usually what people are being distracted by.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
let's get back to you. You can't
Oh,
start
very so
interviewing
yeah,
me,
yeah.
naughty
But
boy.
I know. But I'm just saying, I'm just fascinated. I didn't know about this book, The Nudge: Improving Decisions About Health, Wealth, and Happiness. I mean, and they always couch it, don't they? Don't they? They always couch it in a way that makes it look like it's a good thing. People often make poor choices and look back at them with bafflement. Now, and he talks about how public and private organizations can help people make better choices in their daily lives because, we care and we're here to help you, not about getting you to spend your money to help big business, and not about stripping away your freedom because you actually decided to do it that way. No, 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 no. We're giving you choice. And then and look at this. I mean, it's completely contradictory, isn't it? He advocates for libertarian paternalism, which describes public and private social policies that lead people to make good and better decisions through nudges,
Yeah.
without depriving them of the freedom to choose or significantly changing their economic incentives. You've just contradicted yourself there, because they're leading people to make choices. Yeah, well, just because they are not aware that they're being manipulated, or they are not aware that the choices that they're making are not actually theirs, just because they're ignorant of these facts makes them free? No, I
Yeah.
don't think so.
One of the things they did during COVID was the behavioral insights team decided encouraging people to use disgust as a way to change other people's behavior. So that's what behavioral economics gets down to. You have a blunt end of the stick, which is, oh, look, this is good for you. You do this, or stop smoking. We'll nudge you to stop smoking in all different ways, all the way to the sharp end of the stick. Somewhere in the middle is the point where they make you hate the other people in society who aren't doing what they want you to do, and it's not really within your best interest to listen to them. And the idea of libertarian paternalism is a contradiction in terms anyway, because you're not free if you've got daddy watching over you telling you what to do. It's crazy, the idea that they're going to look after you. Oh, we'll look after you and you'll be free. Those don't work. That doesn't work together. So and it's an eye opener for, like, listen, I'm on a journey, man. You're on a journey. When I hear you speaking, you understand. The people who are the best on the scene are the ones who understand they don't know everything, and that they're still learning, and they're still taking it in, and they're walking the path. And to walk the path helps you to learn, makes you make better decisions yourself. You don't need other people to make better decisions if you've got that inquisitive nature. But what these guys are doing are really looking to focus in on the ones who are the bulk of society, who don't have that drive and motivation to understand what's really going on, and so they can be cajoled and society can be controlled because they're the majority.
Do you not think sometimes you think we deserve as humanity to be in the shit show that we're in because most of us are dumb as fuck and are sheep and want to be led? So you know what? It's fair game for the predator class to rape us and control us and strip of us of our freedoms, because actually most people, they don't want anything else. They actually want that.
There's an element of that in there. There's an element, it's the nihilistic, sad view, the kind of like the view where you say, I always say this is information warfare. We're in deep within fifth generation warfare, so it is all about getting as much information to people as possible. And listen, one day I'm positive into believing, and it probably drives me forward, that one day as we put this puzzle together, the people who don't understand currently because they just can't be bothered will suddenly look at it and go, I understand what that means. And that's how society works. That's how culture works. Now, they know this. They know the route that it's going, so they not only try and have tried to cajole us into this arena where we only have certain information, but they're trying to destroy information. They're trying to burn information, like a Winston Smith in 1984. They're trying to put it into the fire and make the information disappear permanently, so they can replace it with other information. It's information warfare, backwards and forwards. The more people know, the more they realize they're in a cage. And so it is like I was really, from the beginning of COVID to the end of COVID, I'm really satisfied that they can't reach their full aims, because I believe enough people will stand up
I
to
hope
an
so.
extent that causes destabilization of their systems.
I hope so. I'm just saying that we're in the current situation because enough people are not awake to what is going on and are too lazy and too complacent, and we need to wake them up. And yeah, I'm on a mission to wake up those who are asleep, but I'm also on a mission to give strength to those who are already
Mhm.
questioning everything, and to make them realize that actually they're not alone. You know,
So
I had a phone
okay.
call with one of my supporters just the other day. He was saying, Ahmad, you know what? Everyone around me are completely asleep. And he goes, you don't understand. Your podcast has been a lifeline for me. It keeps me sane. You know, even my wife, you know, yeah, she's kind of awake, but not really, you know, and all my friends and all my work, they're all fast asleep. And you know what? I feel like I'm losing my marbles. And then your podcast is like, no, I'm not the crazy one. So
Mhm.
that actually is the most important thing about my podcast, I think, to give strength to those who, like me, at one point thought, you know, am I the only person who thinks like this? Is the world just gone mad, or am I mad? Both options are equally bad, you know.
Let's talk about some. Let's talk about some futures, because like there's the future of what you want to do. There's the future of what you think is going to happen societally, within society, and there's the future you think that we're actually going to get at the end of it. You know, what do you plan on doing in the future? Is it kind of like you're evolving where you're going as you're moving on, or are you realizing that you're doing a lot of support for people, and that is something you want to encourage and continue? What's your future going to look like?
I have no idea. All I do know is I am constantly change. Like every 7 years, I reinvent myself. So, you know, 7 years as a consultant in the NHS, I left. I was literally a full-time private surgeon for 7 years, and then I left that. So I don't know where I'm going to be in another 6.5 years or whatever, you know, 6 years. I don't know, but I know it's not going to be just doing this. You know, I've
Mhm.
got plans. I've got books that I want to write. I've got at least 3 books in my head that I need to write. Um, I can imagine going on a tour. People keep asking me to come around on a tour. I don't know how to go about organizing a tour. You know, I just gave a talk at a relatively local meeting for the first time. It went down really well. People loved it. Um, so I can imagine, like, you know, going around the country, or even, you know, people are telling me, come out to Australia and New Zealand. I'd love to. I'd love to do that. I just don't have a clue how to go about it. But so that's one thing I'd like to do. I'd like to finish my books. Um, I'd like to set up some courses. I'd like to just, yeah, just see where life takes me and just live a true, authentic life. I mean, the dream, I don't know if it'll ever happen, is to have a homestead with goats and chickens, you
Mhm.
know, 5 acres, just be off the grid as much as possible. And nature, I'd love that, mate. That'd be really nice.
Mhm. It's
So
hard. It's
that's,
a hard thing to build.
it's a very hard dream to be. You know, I can barely pay my mortgage right
I
now.
think authenticity is something that came out there, which is like massively important. I think that's why people connect. I know that's a lot of why people connect with my work, is that they understand that I'm authentic. I'm coming across as an individual and independent. So staying independent and keeping as an individual. How do you see the world going in the future, though? That's you and where you'd like to go.
Yeah, see
Do
that
you do
I
do
don't.
you because for a lot of people they see like the technocrats are rising, the machines are rising, Terminator 2 might be on the horizon, there might be nuclear war, there might be, what do you think the world looks like?
I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know, but I can go into theories and everything, but it's literally just that, and it's not grounded in anything. I mean, what I would say is, past performance is usually a good indicator for future performance, but not a guarantee. You know, um, you know. So if you look at the past 2,000, 3,000 years, I think it's becoming increasingly clear that there's a group of evil cabal, occultist families who run the show, who own and run the world. And to be honest, we actually already have a kind of one world government. They pull the strings behind everything. They just haven't declared it to the population because I think they don't think the world's ready for that. And the world would be like, no, we're not going to have this. But they already run the world. And they're just they scheme and work behind the scenes. And I think everyone that you know of and all the names that they're not the real people. The real people, you don't know their names. They're hidden. They're in the shadows. Everyone else is their lieutenant and captain and servant. So I think the march will keep progressing. And so that's one scenario where we just march towards kind of one world government, more control. But they will fool us because through the information mind war, they will fool people into accepting their slave masters as heroes and their digital prison as heaven and sickness as health and victimhood as power. So we will all happily design, manufacture, and build our prisons and walk into them and thank our prison guards as we walk in, and then shut the door, lock it, and then hand the key over. I mean, that's how the information war works. They fuck with our brains and do that to us. So I think that's going to happen. It's going to carry on happening. And then either, that's the end of humanity, as far as we know it, or things get so bad that, and in their hubris as well and arrogance, they just fuck up. They destroy everything, and in the destruction will be roots of freedom and shoots of a new type of humanity that will say enough of this and start again. But I think regardless, the majority of people are going to suffer. There's going to be a lot of death and sickness and illness. A lot of people are going to go down before it gets better. And in some respects, I don't really mind. If you look right now, people don't want to have kids. People can't afford to have kids. People don't want to have kids because they think the planet's already overpopulated. You've got the trans agenda, and all these people are, they're not having kids. They're not making kids. And so in some respects, the philanthropists and the psychopaths and all their brainwashed acolytes now, they can't really inherit the earth. They're gonna die off. So, if you really are a freedom-loving, awake human being, one of the best things you can do to fight back is to create as many freedom-loving babies as possible so that they will inherit the earth.
Sounds fun.
let's outpopulate them. No, I'm being serious. Like, let's make enough of us who are not jabbed and everything.
This is what I was going to ask you. Well, and I think I'm getting the answer before because we're approaching the last 10 minutes.
Before you say that, what do you think of my scenario? What do you think of my? Where do you think it's heading?
Yeah, no. Well, one of the things I want to ask is, where do you think other people should be heading? Because you're a man with a ability to explain to people stuff. I mean, and you're also got a lot to do with health. Where do you think people should be heading? But when it comes to where I think it's going to be, we got some big complications coming up. When the atomic bomb happened, when the gadget was exploded in New Mexico, that changed the entire paradigm of the world, the technological paradigm, and society suddenly entered into a world of perpetual warfare, mutually assured destruction, and intelligence meddling of the highest order. And technological paradigm shifts of that level tend to completely reinvent our societies and our worlds and what we can expect. In the now we're in the future. We've got about 5 or 6 of those technological paradigm shifts about to be upon us. So we've not just got the atomic bomb. It's not just one thing that's going to shift us. It's information, it's communication, it's AI, it's implantables, it's things that they can liquids they can inject, that can interact with you. There's all different technological paradigm shifts, weather manipulation, other things that come in that we don't even have a clue about yet, that are going to be so all encompassing and paradigm shifting that we might not be able to stop what comes. You see what people get like with the idea of transhumanism. Loads of people on our world go, that just sounds like the death of humanity. And then a load of Elon Musk fans will be like, put anything inside me, I don't care, I want to be like you, so please just make me like
I
you.
know. Oh God, I know. It's bloody depressing,
So
isn't it?
the world I see is really hard to adapt. That finds it really hard to adapt to the coming technology. So I think that's why we're going to fill ourselves up with fantasy arguments, misdirection, while these people create that world for us, and they're going to use all of those tools. Those tools, most of them, are tools of the mind. Whether it's injectables, whether it's implantables, whether it's information war, fifth generation warfare, all of these, no longer can we go out on a battlefield with a machine gun facing another guy with a machine gun, firing 100 bullets into the air before we even hit one thing. We now at a different point in time where drones could just obliterate us and puff us into smoke in no time whatsoever. So it'll be drone versus drone warfare until one country or national intelligence infrastructure creates what is really the as close to artificial general intelligence as we can get, and then everything changes. That all of can you imagine if one country has the ability to launch everybody's nuclear weapons? There's no longer do we live in a world of mutually assured destruction and perpetual limited warfare. The whole paradigm shifts and changes to be one pole of multipolar globalism ruling them all, one ring to rule them all. And what I see at the moment is a load of powerful nation states that are just the same as all of the rings of power that will be co-opted by the one ring.
So I was just listening to a podcast with Hervoy Morich, and
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a very good guy. And his guest, what's his guest name? I don't know. Let me remind you. So basically, this guest, Duke something, he was even questioning whether nuclear weapons exist. And I've heard this. Mike Yeadon has said the same thing. I don't know. So are you in the belief that Peter Duke? He was talking to Peter.
Yeah,
Duke.
I know Peter Duke as well.
Peter Duke was like, no, nuclear weapons don't exist. So do you still believe that nuclear weapons exist?
Yeah, I listen. I like Peter Duke, but sometimes some of I mean, I've had interactions with some of the people in his circles which have been crazy, and
so he's got a circle.
Yeah, definitely got a circle. He's very. We have a very strange relationship, me and Peter Duke. I both have shouted at him in DMs many times, and he has accepted my shouting and calmly responded in a way where I'm like, oh, he's so clever how he responds. I forgive him already. So yeah, but he does. When I first went on his podcast to speak about Schwab, he passed me on a couple of people afterwards, and one of them was someone who had stalked my ex-girlfriend at one point, her family, and then I said I don't want anything to do with him, and a week later this guy was in Cardiff saying I'm in Cardiff Bay waiting for Johnny Vedmore, and we hadn't agreed, and it turned out he had a whole different last name, and he goes by this guy.
So who are you talking about?
This guy goes by the name George Webb. His real name's George Zweigart. He once declared himself of Robert Maxwell's Mossad. So I'm not a fan of him at all.
I've heard of Job Webb, this so-called investigative.
Yeah, his real name's Zweigart. Even his brother says he's some form of intelligence. Even his brother says it, so. Zweigart.
So hold on one second. This guy Peter Duke
he's a nice guy, Peter Duke. Yeah.
But Peter Duke sent George Webb to Cardiff to see
No,
you.
no, he didn't send George Webb. He introduced me to George Webb as though I wouldn't know who he was. And then I was like, this, you must be joking. This guy tried to stalk my ex's family and stuff. And then the next minute he was in Cardiff. I made it very clear I didn't want to talk to this guy, and then he was signaling that it's an attempt to intimidate. And I
Are you
think it
kidding? And did he do this publicly?
yeah,
Like on
he
X?
wrote publicly, I'm in Cardiff Bay, blah de blah de blah. Me and Peter Duke had already had the backwards and forwards, and I already blocked him. I've said a piece on X already about George Webb coming to Cardiff and doing all of that. It's just not it stinks. And he was in an interview with the late Daniel Hopsicker, and I remember watching that just around that time, and he was like saying, "Yeah, I'm of Robert Maxwell's Mossad. That's the Mossad," and they're going, "Don't say that. Don't say what you're saying right now. Don't say what you're saying." He's like, "Oh no, no, but that's what I am. That's what I am." So I think he sniffs of intelligence.
What the hell?
Yeah,
And
but
so,
I have things like this happen all through. Like I'm reporting on stuff that is troublesome at the best of
okay.
times.
So who else is in his circle? Peter Duke's circle.
I don't want to create fights. That's for sure. I had one of them on my TNT show. One of the guys who was
No, but
on that interview was
why
a
would
guy
it cause?
called Addy Ads.
Why would it be? Why would it be a fight to just say who's the circle that you think he's?
Because I'm clearly saying that George Webb is Mossad, and he's clearly said it himself, and that has connotations itself. And me and Peter Duke, I've been honest with him about this, and Peter Duke, he is. Peter Duke is extremely respectful to me. He's a very nice guy. I kind of like him. I don't judge people even by their associates. I accept that people can change their allegiances, but also they can ally with people for different reasons. And I accept that because this media infrastructure is complicated.
And they might not actually know. They might not even know that this person.
Yeah, I'd have a hard time thinking that Peter Duke doesn't know that George Webb is somehow a little bit sus. But Addy Ads is another one within their group who I kind of like his spunk. I like the way he goes.
I've never heard of this guy.
He's a very he was outside nearly every when the
how'd you spell
Maxwell
his name?
trial.
How'd you spell his name?
Addys.
A
Adds
D
is
D Y A.
Adds. He's a very interesting character. I've had
So, sorry,
many conversations with Addy.
did you say ADDS?
Adds. Addy Ads. He's an interesting character. He is. I contacted him and Peter Duke and was like, I don't want to know George Webb before he came to Cardiff and did this whole thing. I said, I don't want to know George Webb. He says he's bloody Mossad, blah, de, blah, de, blah. And Adiad said, he's my mentor. And I was like, oh, that's complicated. So I don't know. The whole thing's a little bit complicated, to be honest. Being a journalist reporting on intelligence infrastructure is not something, an independent journalist is not something they want. They want to control and cajole. So I don't know. Like I say, I've talked with Adi Ads on a number of occasions. I interviewed him. He tried to put forward, like, I think he called it like meta journalism, where he was trying to encourage me to investigate people within the independent media community and call it, and I just see that as troublemaking. I mean, a lot of it is troublemaking. There's a load of people. You have to be discerning and make your own mind up about journalists and who you're listening to. And I try and give people logic and examples of how these people who are higher ups work. I don't want to go start shooting off to the sides. Arguments in the independent media are something I really don't want to do anymore. I've done too much of it. I often shout at people if they're dicks. You know, that's the way we have. I openly say what my issue is, like I did with George Webb, but I'm not interested in going down those routes. So it's been complicated, complicated, this whole thing.
So you know what? I don't think I publicly shout at anybody. I don't. It's just not my style. It's just I don't like spats with anyone. I had Robert Malone on my show, and that was hilarious. He was quite strange.
Mm,
And I just stayed quiet. I
okay.
just stayed quiet. I just feel like I don't want to descend into that negative space.
Yeah, he's a again, Robert Malone is another complicated one who you're trying to work out his allegiances, and it's hard to work it out. And he does something which I don't trust, which is it's an example of something that I think is really dangerous, which is he threatens legal action against people if they disagree with him or they criticize him. I think that is suspicious at best.
Yeah,
So I'm not interested in that sort of stuff. I think there's a load of different people as well who in I've come across different people who say that they've practiced law and they haven't practiced law. They're just trying to scare you into thinking they're going to use lawfare against you. And so you'll be more careful about, like, saying I'm against you. And that's one of the examples. But I'm on the I mean I'm deep on the independent media. I have really long conversation. I mean, we've had a conversation outside this podcast here, and we talked. And I talk openly and honestly about my experience, and I don't hide anything with people. I because of that, it means that it's authenticity, and a lot of the people on the independent media respond to it by also saying who are trustworthy, also saying, yeah, my experiences of this person is this, and this. So I've got some sort of understanding of what
do
Robert
you know what?
Malone's been like before.
It's so murky, so murky. It's like I one of the realizations that I've had, like I said, I'm late to the party. In some respects, I think that's a good thing because
Hmm.
I'm not part of any clique or anything. And I've got a bona fide background. I was a very successful foot and ankle surgeon, perfectly happy in my little world. But one of the disappointments that I've had in the last 18 months is if we're in a spiritual war, and we really are, not just, I'm not just saying that metaphorically, we actually physically are in a spiritual war. We're in the trenches, and you're looking across no man's land to the enemy trenches. You think by default that the people that are in your trench are on your side fighting those guys. One of the things I've realized in the last 18 months is not necessarily. Some of the people on my left and right are actually from that trench sitting in my trench. And I'm like, oh fuck shit. Now I need to point my gun on either side. I've just realized that there's a lot of people on our so-called side who are a bit bizarre, who are acting in a strange manner, who are either in it for themselves or money or fame or whatever, or in fact, they're playing the ultimate game that these evil bastards do, which is they give you one side, which is the baddie side, and then they give you the alternative side, which is so-called fighting the baddie side, when actually they're being controlled by the same people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and that to me has been an eye opener. I was like, oh my God. And there's different names for it, like controlled opposition or whatever. But I think some of these people are directly controlled. Some of them are indirectly
Mhm.
controlled. Some of them are knowingly controlled, and some of them are unknowingly controlled. So you could be knowingly and directly controlled, right? Or you
This is
could
a
actually,
fantastic breakdown. What you're giving here is a fantastic breakdown of what's, yeah.
yeah, or you could be unknowingly and indirectly controlled. So
Hmm.
you even think you're a good guy. You're like, I'm a good guy, but you're
Oh,
still serving the enemy.
yeah,
And
totally.
then that unknowing, indirectly control comes from different things because you're just associated with certain types of people and you get to know them and you get to wine and dine with them and you get invited to meetings and conferences and tours around the world. And you go, but I got invited. I sat down and broke bread with them and they're cool people. They're nice people. And like they might actually be knowingly and directly controlled. And you're just being associated with them and hanging out with them and being promoted by them and going on their shows and you're going on their shows and you're going on the tours. So now you're indirectly and unknowingly controlled.
Hmm. Yeah, most definitely. That's why these networks, these big overarching independent media networks are troublesome because, of course, they lead to people um, getting involved with the Hegelian dialectic that's being created for
Do you
them,
know,
you
at
know?
one point I got offered to, I inquired and I was offered a potential slot on TNT. And, I hummed and hawed. This is when I just lost everything and I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills. And it was very tempting,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't take it. I didn't take it. And I've been in this situation before. I was unemployed when I finished my training as a surgeon. And I was, out of work for 2, 3 months. And someone offered me a job as a consultant in a hospital. And I went there, I looked around, I didn't like it, didn't like it. And I turned it down. And all my friends and my family were like, "Are you fucking crazy? You're unemployed for 3 months and you've turned down the job? Are you fucking mad?" And I was like, no. Do you know what? I'm better than this. That's not right for me. I'm going to tough it out and I'm going to wait until something better comes along. And it was the same with TNT. I was desperate.
I have to say though, I mean, for my experience on TNT was just, it was for me, it was unbelievable and unthinkable. They gave me full editorial control.
I know, no, but no.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, but I'm saying
No, but
for
what
that,
I
it
know, I
just
know. I'm not saying they're
amazing.
controlled, but what
Oh,
I'm
I
trying to say
understand.
is TNT were offering me something and it was a lot of work. If I would not have
Mm-hmm.
been able to do the podcast, I would not have been able to develop my own brand. I would have to cut right back
Yeah.
and invest everything. And then there were people on that platform that I didn't 100% agree with. I didn't want to be associated with them.
Mhm.
And then look what happened. They went down. And I imagine I had invested all this time and effort building my own brand. I'm just really glad I went independent. So when you were saying to people, when you're saying to me, like, what would you say to other people? I'd say to people, if you're worried about being cancelled, cancel yourself.
Yeah, maybe.
Be independent, work for yourself, live your true, authentic self.
Yeah, there you go.
And,
Authenticity.
and don't take a massive private hire for a big 4x4 that you can't afford just because you want to show off to your neighbors or whatever. Live within your means, and try and be as independent as possible.
That is
Um,
a fantastic, yeah. That's a fantastic advice, and it's a fantastic way to kind of end this podcast as well. I
and
mean, it's really important. I think the term authenticity has come up a lot, and this is something that I get from you is that you're not only an authentic person, but you're authentically intrigued by things, and you when something it makes you inquire, it makes your get lights up your brain, you go towards it, and I really appreciate that about you. Ahmed, Ahmed, it's really, really nice to speak to you. I know that's not the end because we're going to have a conversation on your podcast. I'm going to come and see you in person, and we're going to get to meet. I get to give you a hug, and we'll get to talk about the trauma of independent media again. And I'm sure we'll be doing lots more. Do you want to tell people just at the end where best to find you and what platforms you most likely use?
Yeah, I mean, just go on DocMalik, DocMalik.com, and that's my website. I mean, you'll find everything there, docmalik.com, and you'll find links to all my podcasts and my Substack. And my X account is Doc Ahmad Malik, all one word, DocAhmadMalik. So that's no E's in there, it's all A's. Doc Malik. Doc Ahmad Malik, and my Substack is docmalik.substack.com. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Hey,
buddy.
thanks for coming on. Really appreciated it and an awesome conversation. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure indeed.
What we know is that we will end up with many more unemployed